My name is Emily Akkermann. The area of focus for my Pecha Kucha is that every child has the right to read. Stephen Peters puts the right to read as giving each student the capability to access information that can allow them to reach their fullest potential. The right to read has become an issue in the U.S. because students are failing at reading at basic level and not meeting proficiency benchmarks. I chose this topic because I teach children every day that struggle with reading. We teach and we teach and we teach, and the students' progress monitoring scores are not showing growth. If a child cannot read, it is costly to their choices in life. The right to read impacts socioeconomic status, racism, quality of instruction, future opportunities, and systemic inequities. The equity in the right to read is that if a child cannot read, it impacts their future opportunities. There's a social cost that students who are illiterate grow up being marginalized and have less choices in life. There are disproportionate effects. Those who have access to a print-rich environment are privileged, and teachers cannot replicate this for students who do not have access to print-rich environments. The right to read can also be a systemic issue in that the resources are limited. Schools do not cater to those who have literacy needs because the majority of students are typical learners who will learn to read no matter what the environment or resources they have access to. The right to read includes many ethical issues, and to acknowledge all of them would take a lifetime. I will focus on the personal right for children to know and be taught how to read. This is a dilemma for many reasons. Our knowledge of reading has changed drastically over the last 20 years because of what we know about the brain. In 2022, the controversy of reading curriculum and strategies was brought to light by Emily Hannaford in the podcast Sold a Story. Also, teachers have their beliefs and they're not willing to change. However, the focal point of the right to read is what activist Kareem Weaver talks about in Jenny McKenzie's documentary, The Right to Read, that reading is the greatest civil right and foundation for life. Therefore, as a teacher, it's my responsibility to act in the best interest of my students by giving them access to curriculum, activities, and resources to provide quality and equitable educational experience, and to protect them from any practice that harms or has potential to harm them. From my perspective, an equitable outcome for the dilemma would be that all children be taught to read using a comprehensive approach. Where literacy starts at home, classrooms use evidence-based practices, and teachers use repetition and practice to create pathways in the brain, thus training the brain. The common goal that educators and parents have for students is to learn and to know how to read regardless of differences, because we do not want students to struggle in academics or life. A leading tension with the right to read is how to teach students how to read. Some believe that students will learn to read naturally if they're exposed to a lot of books, which is known as whole language approach. Others believed in balanced literacy, which is a mix of whole language and phonics instruction. Then there are those that believe that children should be taught to read by using phonemic awareness, phonics, fluency, vocabulary, and comprehension, which is known as structured literacy. As an educator, my perspective is that children learn best when instruction is multisensory, explicit, and systematic. My perspective has been shaped through teaching children how to read and experiencing what strategies are most helpful. When I began my teaching career, I kept wondering if there were certain ways I could help students who struggled with learning how to read, because reading slower wasn't helping, having lots of books, and reading round robin was not helping at all. In the fall of 2023, I conducted an action research project to find out if teaching reading explicitly, systematically, and multisensorily would help students improve their reading, and the results were that these strategies improved students' reading. The stakeholders in this dilemma are parents, teachers, and students. Parents are responsible for the whole well-being of their child. They collaborate with educators to help their child be the best reader that they could be. Teachers are responsible for making sure students learn how to read so that they can read to learn. Students are the ones learning how to read, and it sets the trajectory for their life. Therefore, they have the largest stake in the dilemma. What I've learned from my parents is that they want their child to learn how to read because they know it affects their whole life. Students have taught me that it's important to teach them when they are young and excited to learn because they love learning, and it can be snuffed out when learning becomes hard. To make effective progress towards equitable outcomes to this dilemma, parents need to ensure that their child is exposed and has access to literature. Teachers must use a structured literacy approach when teaching students how to read. This is not a curriculum. The structured literacy approach includes teaching students phonological awareness, phonics, fluency, vocabulary, and comprehension in their reading and writing, but in an explicit and systematic manner. What I understand now is that learning to read is a fundamental right because it allows students to play an active role in society. According to the Right to Read, illiteracy is the pipeline to prison, homelessness, depression, economic inequity, unemployment, and more societal problems. Therefore, it is vital that students have access to literature at home and are taught to read with a structured approach. The documentary film The Right to Read, directed by Jenny McKenzie, starring Kareem Weaver, helped me develop my understanding of what we are facing as a nation when it comes to children learning to read. According to Weaver, 1/3 of our nation's fourth graders cannot read at a basic level. Literacy begins at home, and the parents have the power. As teachers, we can help our students be literate in the information age by using a comprehensive approach to teaching reading so that students can meet proficiency levels and not guess at reading. We must use an evidence-based curriculum because publishers are making millions of dollars and 1/3 of our students can't read. The article, Right to Read, What Can We Learn from Neuroscience to Augment Childhood and Literacy Policies by Francisco Castro, Amanda Rodriguez, and Flavia Peso de Costa, highlight that reading is the most critical academic piece of a child's knowledge. It allows students to play an active role in society later in life, and to fight disadvantages, children must be provided with healthy cognitive development at home and at school. The article, Tensions Between the Science of Reading and a Love of Learning, One High Poverty School's Struggle with NCLB by Cynthia Gerstle-Pepin and Haley Woodside-Giron, solidified the idea that teachers need to teach reading with a comprehensive approach because they found that curriculum has limits and funding to buy that curriculum has limits. It is also important for parents and teachers to collaborate in teaching students the value of reading. As an educator, I ask myself, what am I doing to help my students to read? And how do I help parents and guardians to do the same in their home? In my classroom, it is implementing structured literacy using the 5 pillars of reading and multisensory strategies in an explicit, systematic way. By doing this, I envision closing students' reading gaps and seeing growth in their progress monitoring. Professionally, I will be advocating to colleagues to implement these strategies based on the data of my students because this data is personal and not just random research. I will be also advocating for professional development on how to teach the 5 pillars of reading. To promote reading at home with parents and guardians, each week students will take extra practice home in their take-home folder. It will be stressed that this is not homework, but a way that they can practice reading with their child and help them become better readers. Steps that my school can take to advance equity in using an evidence-based curriculum, provide professional development, and provide books for students to take home to read. Advocating for the use of evidence-based curriculum is short-term with long-term effects because in the past we've used curriculum based on what the teachers like or what they think is easy to teach. Advocating for professional development is short-term with long-term effects as well because most of our teachers have not been taught how to actually teach reading in a structured manner. Implementing a school-to-home literacy program will be a long-term step because it means finding books, matching books with the skills students need, convincing teachers it's necessary, and doing it year after year. Taking these steps reflects both the present and the future. Presently, our students are struggling to learn how to read. However, teachers and parents working collaboratively give their students more choices in the future. Teachers implementing structured literacy and utilizing the home literacy program will grant their students growth and future choice. Parents who use the home literacy program and train their children to value reading will support their literacy development.